I will thank the Arizona Cardinals for cooperating and not handing the Philadelphia Eagles their first loss, thereby giving us undefeated Philadelphia versus one loss Dallas
Yeah.
next Sunday night on NBC. Never too early to start looking at both those teams. First of all, the Eagles. Let's talk about the Eagles. Last undefeated team in a league that is designed for everybody to lose every week. Forget parity.
Yep.
It's designed, as somebody has said to me the other day, more games are lost than won in the NFL. And the Eagles have managed to both win all their games and not lose all their games when every game comes down to one possession in the fourth quarter. What is it about this team? Like, I think they've shown enough for us to be believers in the Philadelphia Eagles. But what is it about this team where it's going to have staying power, not just in the regular season, not just 5 weeks in, but in the postseason, Chuck?
Oh, I think it's a couple of things. I mean, number one, I think when you look around the league right now, you need to understand we have to get back to the fundamentals of investing in the offensive line. Okay, let's look at the LA Rams, right? We're sitting there with the Rams and we're going, Stafford looks beat up. He looked hurt yesterday. He actually looked like a player who was in pain, was picking himself up off the turf. You're like, man, this is not sustainable. Well, when you go star heavy and you go out and you make the big signings and you do the cash over cap stuff and you deal draft picks and all these different things, if you can't keep an anchor like an Andrew Whitworth, what ultimately eventually suffers is your offensive line. And once that goes, it's not recoverable. Okay, right? Like you can't fix. Yeah. There's no position other than quarterback. When you lose your top line, there's no position harder to fix or unit harder to fix than the offensive line. They're just not available. Right. They're not available in training camp. They're not available. They're rarely available at the deadline. And when you look at the Eagles, particularly when they're at full health, that's probably a top 3 offensive line in football. So I think that has had a lot to do with it.
So I think defensive line. They're both sides of the ball dominant. Yeah.
And as you said, defensively, I mean, they made a ton of investment up front in that defensive line. They've got, you have a defensive coordinator who's going to be a head coach, candidate at the top of a lot of lists. So I don't think it's been all filtered through the Jalen Hurts prism, right? Because it's a quarterback-dominated league. All the success gets credited to the quarterback. But the guys in front of them, okay, have pushed teams around, have been dominant, and then, mostly, for the most part, healthy. They're dealing with a little bit now. But then, and then, as you said, opposite end defensive line. We talk about the Cowboys, who they're going to face. We're going to talk about that defensive line. This is all fundamental. You and I have covered the league forever, and we go through trends and waves and ups and downs, and the game changes. You know what doesn't change? Bad dude defensive lines, bad dude offensive lines are consistent teams in the end.
Well, and also too, I mean, I fell in love with Jalen Hurts when he got benched for Tua Tagovailoa, and then a year later won the SEC championship in the same stadium that he was benched in. And I knew, and when he stayed at Alabama, is what I'm saying. He stayed at Alabama, then goes and is a Heisman Trophy candidate at Oklahoma. I knew that they had something special in him in his limited playing time toward the end of the season in relief for Carson Wentz. I was like, he feels like he was fit for Philadelphia. But this isn't about me. This is about that organization and Howie Roseman, because at the time it was like, well, you got Carson Wentz. Why are you taking a second round quarterback? For what? Why would you do that? Why would you undermine Carson Wentz by taking a second round quarterback? Well, not only did they hit on that quarterback, but it's a second round quarterback contract. And as you've written about, as we've all talked about, it's like you can go out and pay A.J. Brown $100 million. You can go out and invest in the lines. You can go out and spend elsewhere to keep the team together when your quarterback is cheap. Dare I say it, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is this guy. They're obviously different people. But it's similar to Seattle. Go across the country. When Seattle first had Russell Wilson, they did not have to spend a bunch of money on that third-round pick in Russell Wilson. Same with Philadelphia. They got this window where they got a guy that for now is not going to command a huge amount of your salary cap.
Here's a fun little story.
For now.
Side story about Jalen Hurts. You mentioned Howie Roseman. So I'll tell a fun little side story. I've never told this story before. Ooh. So that draft, the Jalen, this is a good one. I've had this one in my pocket for a while. That draft was the COVID draft, right? Everybody was at home. Everybody was in their offices. It wasn't the collective.
Class of 2020.
Right.
This is Burrow. This is Tua. This is Herbert, and this is Jalen in the second round. Yep.
So you got Howie at home, right? And I remember when they took him when Howie took him in the second round, the follow-up after that, and this was even from inside the organization, was, man, the second round, like, yo, okay, like, we liked him, but we really liked him, like, maybe in the third. Like, the second round was just like, it felt, people forget, it felt like such a reach. It was such like an oddity because, as you said, they had Carson Wentz, and the storyline not being told by Howie Roseman, but by people around that organization, it was, that probably doesn't happen if we don't have a COVID draft. If everybody's in the room, we're going around the room, and the sentiment there probably ends up taking a different player in the second round. And then we hope, he gets talked out of it, and then Jalen Hurts. Now, I don't think Howie would tell you he wouldn't have gotten talked out of it anyway, but I'm just saying that the sentiment in the room would have been, let's get him when we come back in the third. The thing was, I don't think he would have been there in the third. When you talk to other franchises, even then, they were like, yeah, there were other teams looking at him in the second. He probably wouldn't have been there. But the thought process was how he just took this guy at a time where maybe people didn't necessarily agree in the room. And now, in hindsight, especially now, there was a lot of development that had to occur, and it all turned out great, or at least up until now, it's all turned out great. That's a nice little subplot about this COVID draft where a guy gets taken, and I think even some people in the building that would have been in the building, but who were at home, were like, I don't know, man, we kind of reached a little far on that one.
I've always loved his intangibles, and he's come such a long way as a player. Oh, sorry, my microphone.
Oh, you're good. I mean, Mike, the thing is, he's the son of a coach. You know, like everybody talks about son of a coach, and people say, oh, that's a cliche. It gets overplayed. I don't think it really does, because I think there are a lot of lessons you learn over in a more expansive period of time. I think when you're just constantly in that environment and with someone who's expected to lead not just a group or a small room, or you got to lead a whole team and make decisions. I think that's part of it. I think his development has been part of that upbringing. I actually think his ability, as you said, to go through the Alabama experience, stick through it, by the way, at a time when, especially now, think about college football now, never happens. They're in the portal, like, you gone. If you even think there's a chance, you're going to be gone. He sucked through it, and then made, let's remember, one more additional decision on top of it that was very important and ended up being good for him, was to go to a program where it was very much about teaching, using him the way that the NFL was starting to trend with quarterbacks, not just being, hey, cement, feet in the ground, pocket passer. No, you're going to do a lot of different things. There's going to be RPOs. This is starting to be the Lincoln Riley sets for what we were starting to see in the NFL. That was another smart decision on his part.
Yeah, no, his intangibles, I've just always loved them. And the Eagles look really good for taking him, investing in him. Feels like we're a long way away from, this is a show and prove year for Jalen Hurts. Is he really the guy? It's like, yeah, he's kind of answered that. That was just this offseason.
It was 6 weeks
ago. That was just
ago.
this offseason. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was this offseason.
6 weeks ago.
Big question mark. Jalen Hurts. They set him up to succeed. Can he actually do it in August? Yeah.
Bro, in August, I'm sitting there with Nick Sirianni, and I'm literally looking at him saying, man, you guys are in a good spot. This doesn't work out with Jalen. You're in a good spot. You got these draft picks.
They got these picks, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or whatever. Yeah.
Maybe there's a veteran quarterback available. You guys can go trade for him. They'll want to come here.
Right.
And Nick's kind of looking at me like, yeah, but we think we actually might be okay. And I'm like, yeah, sure, Nick. I'm like, all right, well, tell me what's your measure? And he went through the whole thing, like how they were going to measure it, both from, an accuracy standpoint, the physical tool standpoint, but then the leadership standpoint. They had a plan. Now, here's the thing. This is October 10th, right? We're blah, blah, blah. We're saying all these things.
Right,
Let's see how he fares against a Dallas defense that is straight up, as I said, 4-0. Cooper Rush is not 4-0. Cooper Rush is great. Dallas defense is 4-0, and they are ripping and running right now, and Philly and Jalen Hurts are going to have plenty to think about.
Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.